So you've learned a little bit about infinite banking and you're intrigued by what you've heard, but at this point, you're curious to find out why you've never heard about it before and why aren't more people using this concept that you know. And I get it because we were both there. By the end of this video, you'll know the 3 biggest reasons why you've never heard of infinite banking and also how you can use infinite banking without increasing your income or your expenses to finally get ahead. Hi, I'm Matt.
And I'm Brian, and we're the Predictable Wealth Advocates, and we help ambitious millennials secure a predictable financial future without changing their current lifestyle by thinking outside of the box.
So when you're asking yourself why you haven't ever heard about this, I would encourage you guys to ask a different question, which is, am I following the herd when it comes to anything financial related? Because what humans do by nature is we typically follow the herd. It's the way we survive. There's definitely specific things that the 1% is doing differently than everybody else in this herd. And if you're trying to get out of this millennial herd and become wealthy and free, there's going to be some things that you're going to have to understand and explore, dive deeper to really get yourself to that place. So in this video, we're going to talk about the 3 specific points, the reasons why you're not hearing about infinite banking, and what you need to consider before putting all your money into a 401k or an IRA. Number 1, you don't have wealthy friends who are transparent to you about how they're growing their wealth, or they're not necessarily wealthy. You might not having those people in your circle, which is okay. There aren't a lot of them out there. They might just be collecting a big paycheck, but they're probably wasting a lot of it in the back end. So explain what I mean.
Big difference between wealth and income. So let's say somebody's making $250,000 a year. They got a nice house, they got a nice car, and they're making that $21,000 a month, but their expenses could be $21,000 a month is what I'm saying. So just because somebody makes a lot of money, it doesn't equal wealth. And I think ultimate wealth is a passive cash flow that's coming in without you working for it. I never heard about infinite banking before because I didn't have those type of people in my circle that you were just mentioning. I didn't hear about it until I met somebody who was wealthy that was willing to disclose how they did it. And I'll talk about that a little bit more later in this video.
And I also had the exact same experience with a wealthy person. Okay, so point number 2 now. Your financial planner doesn't have any clue about infinite banking or doesn't think it provides a reliable or good rate of return.
Yeah, and that's not knocking financial planners or advisors.
Correct.
By any means. It's just what our experience has been, and that's what's pretty typical. If you bring up, hey, have you heard about infinite banking to a financial planner? Most of them have not heard about it. And that might be for a couple different reasons. It might be because that's not the training they received when they became a financial planner or an advisor.
Right.
You know, simply put, it could be just the fact that they're aware of it, but they don't specialize in it. And that's part of what we do, right? It's like we help connect you with people who specialize in the infinite banking concept so that you can actually use it. It's just not their specialty.
Right. And to that point, we've heard horror stories about people trying to use these kinds of vehicles and finding out that it wasn't what they thought it was.
Right.
And it always boils back to, well, what kind of agent were you working with?
Exactly. Exactly. So they might not know about it. They might be aware of it, but just it's not their specialty. Or they might think, well, I can get you, my client, a better rate of return somewhere else. And the interesting thing about infinite banking that we learned is that it's not so much about rate of return. It's like, sure, you get a rate of return, but that's not the most important part, because the most important part are some things we've talked about in previous videos is you don't want to be interrupting your compound interest.
Number 2, you want a reliable rate of return. You don't have to worry about the risk that's
right.
involved in the stock market or involved in any kind of place where the psychology of the consumer is in play.
Absolutely. The risk is huge, right? Because like, what if the market goes down by 30, 40, 50%, like it has multiple times in our life?
Yeah.
I mean, that sucks.
Literally, when we get out of school, we have a stock market crash in 08. And now we're sitting on the brink of another one with COVID-19. Who knows how that's going to play out in the next couple months. But it goes to show you this kind of stuff. 12%, perfect. I love that idea. But is it really going to be 12%?
Right. What is it in reality?
Yep. And can I get that money out when I want it?
That's the other thing.
Mm-hmm.
So with the infinite banking, you can actually use your cash as collateral to borrow against it and continue to have that grow for you, depending on how your stuff is all structured.
Mm-hmm. Huge benefits to this. Now, the third point, and probably one of the most interesting points, is the idea of these financial institutions and what they have to benefit from keeping your financial IQ low. And we can go down the rabbit hole with that, but let's try not to do that.
That's a whole rabbit hole. We talk about that a little bit more in our Masterclass. We dive a little bit deeper in that. Yeah. It's kind of mind-blowing. I mean, just think about it this way. The banks make money, and the companies that loan you money, they make money when you're paying interest to them. Like, they would prefer us to be in a place where we are their asset. We're making them money. So if they taught us to increase our financial IQ, all of a sudden, the short of it is we wouldn't be making them as much money. So they have a vested interest in keeping our financial IQ pretty low. If you've ever wondered why, financial education isn't taught in school, well, we talk about that in the Masterclass, but it's like, oh, that kind of makes sense.
Yeah. All right, so explain to these people how you first got introduced to the concept.
Yeah, certainly. So, we're both entrepreneurs, and I know a lot of people who are watching this are also entrepreneurs, or you're an ambitious millennial. And, I got started in business about 13 years ago, and when you start making a little bit of money, your next question really is, well, what do I do with this money?
Right.
How do I grow this money? But, I looked at different things. Do I leave it in the bank at a crazy, stupid low interest rate? Do I try to figure out the real estate game, or do stock market trading? What are all these different things? And I really didn't want to divert my attention and focus away from our business, but I also wanted to grow the money. And ultimately, we wanted to have our finances set and taken care of, regardless of how well or how not well our business was doing.
Makes sense.
So we didn't know what to do, but I remember about 8.5 years ago, I was in Dallas, Texas at a leadership event, and one of my mentors was there. Very successful individual, multi-millionaire, completely taken care of financially. And he brought a gentleman over to me, and we were sitting down at a restaurant, and he goes, "You've got to meet this guy." And that's how I first got introduced to the concept. And probably the reason that I took a serious look at it was because of the individual that was sharing it with me. He also didn't have a vested financial interest. Like, whether I did or didn't decide to utilize the concept for myself didn't impact him whatsoever. I just knew he had my best interest in mind. So ultimately, we got started with the concept, and today, it's pretty cool to know where your dollars are going, feel good about where your dollars are going, that it's in a place that's continuing to grow. You're not taking traditional risk. And, now that we've ventured out and to do some other things, we've been able to also use that in combination to do some things like real estate. So just really grateful that we came across the concept, but again, probably wouldn't have taken a serious look if it wasn't for the person who was sharing with me.
It makes sense. And that's why we started this channel in the first place, was because a lot of people just don't have those kinds of connections or know even where to start. And just to recap what we talked about today, the biggest reasons why you haven't heard about any of the stuff we're talking about here, especially if you're a millennial, number one is none of your wealthy friends are either talking to you about it, or they're not actually wealthy in the first place. They might have a big check, all right, but at the end of the month, the expenses are pretty darn close to what they earn. So in the end, they really don't have any wealth. They're just constantly, it's just a leaky bucket, if you will. Number two, your financial planner either doesn't know about it, or they don't think there's a good rate of return. And while that may be the case, all right, there's also a lot of risk attached to anything stock market related or investment related, right? And the one cool thing about this concept is the return, the interest that you're going to earn, consistent. Might not be the 12% you're promised with the mutual fund, but who's to say that's going to happen?
Exactly.
This is there, and it's going to be consistent for the rest of your life. And then the third thing is these institutions, banks, etc., they have a vested interest in you not knowing about this stuff.
Exactly.
Right? It benefits them for us to be stupid.
They make more money if we don't know this stuff.
Bingo. And so if you're looking to grow your wealth more in a predictable way, keep watching our channel. Make sure you follow the next videos coming out, because we're going to hopefully continue to teach you new concepts, new ways of doing things, thinking outside the box to grow your wealth.